The phone buzzed. Elin Nordegren stared at the screen. A notification. A photo. Her breath caught. It wasn't the first time she'd seen something she wasn't supposed to see. But this one felt different. Tiger Woods. Vanessa Trump. Together. Smiling. The kind of smile that doesn't belong in a casual headline. The kind that rewrites narratives. She didn't scream. She didn't throw the phone. She just stood there, in the stillness of her newly rebuilt life, and felt the ground shift again. Not the way it did in 2009, when the world exploded and her marriage shattered in front of billions. This was quieter. Sharper. A reminder that some names, some faces, some wounds never really close. Tiger had moved on. She had moved on. But moving on doesn't mean forgetting. And it doesn't mean the past stops finding new ways to knock on your door. What did she do in that moment? What did she feel? And why did this particular image, this particular woman, cut deeper than the headlines ever could? The answer isn't what you think. And it starts long before that photo ever surfaced. If you've ever felt the sting of being reminded of something you thought you'd buried, stay with me. And if this story pulls you in, consider subscribing. Not for the drama, but because stories like this remind us what it means to rebuild when the world watches you fall. Elin Nordegren wasn't supposed to be here. Not in the tabloids. Not in the wreckage of a marriage that became a global spectacle. Not in the position of having to rebuild her identity while the cameras pointed and the keyboards clicked. She was a nanny. A Swedish model. A woman who'd quietly built a life of discipline, privacy, and grace. Then she married Tiger Woods in 2004, and privacy became a relic. Fame became a cage. And grace became the only weapon she had left. For 5 years, she played the role. The silent wife. The supportive partner. The woman behind the greatest golfer in history. She didn't need the spotlight. She didn't want it. But it found her anyway. Then came Thanksgiving 2009. The night everything shattered. The car. The fire hydrant. The 911 call. And the revelation that would unravel not just a marriage, but an empire. Tiger's infidelities weren't rumors anymore. They were names. Faces. Text messages. A parade of betrayals that played out in real time, on every screen, in every language. Elin didn't speak. Not publicly. Not immediately. She let the lawyers handle the divorce. She let the tabloids write their fiction. She took the settlement, reportedly $100 million, and disappeared into motherhood, into education, into silence. And for years, that silence worked. She rebuilt. She studied. She became a mental health counselor. She raised her 2 children, Sam and Charlie, away from the circus. She found love again, quietly, with former NFL tight end Jordan Cameron. She built a life that didn't need validation from the world that had humiliated her. But here's the thing about silence. It's not erasure. It's strategy. And it only works until someone decides to test it. Vanessa Trump wasn't a stranger to Elin. Not personally. But symbolically, they existed in the same orbit. Both had married men who carried the weight of legacy, expectation, and spectacle. Both had lived under the suffocating glare of public life. Both had walked away from marriages that the world thought were untouchable. Vanessa had been married to Donald Trump Jr. for 12 years. She'd raised 5 children in the shadow of the Trump name. And when the marriage ended in 2018, she did what Elin did, she stepped back. She focused on her kids. She avoided the noise. So when the rumors started circulating in early 2023 that Tiger Woods and Vanessa Trump had been seen together, casually, at a charity event in Florida, it was easy to dismiss. Easy to call it tabloid bait. Easy to assume it was nothing. But then the photos surfaced. Not paparazzi shots. Not blurry, zoomed-in gossip. Clear, deliberate images. Tiger and Vanessa. Side by side. Laughing. Comfortable. The kind of body language that doesn't lie. The internet exploded. Was this a relationship? A friendship? A calculated PR move? No one knew. But everyone had an opinion. And somewhere in Florida, in the home she'd built with her own hands, Elin saw it. The photos. The headlines. The name that hadn't mattered to her in years, suddenly mattering again. She didn't call anyone. She didn't post a statement. She didn't need to. Because the reaction wasn't what the tabloids wanted. It wasn't rage. It wasn't jealousy. It was something far more complicated. Have you ever seen something that didn't hurt the way you expected it to, but hurt in a way you couldn't name? Drop a comment if you know that feeling. Because what Elin felt in that moment wasn't what anyone assumed. Here's what people got wrong. They thought Elin would be angry. Heartbroken. Blindsided. They thought she'd see Tiger with another woman, especially someone like Vanessa Trump, someone polished, connected, someone from a world of wealth and power, and feel replaced. But Elin Nordegren had stopped being Tiger's ex-wife a long time ago. She'd stopped letting his choices define her narrative. She'd built something bigger than the wreckage. She had degrees. She had a career helping others heal. She had children who adored her. She had a partner who respected her. So when she saw the photos, the reaction wasn't what the headlines wanted. It was quieter. Sharper. More human. It was the realization that no matter how far you run from the past, it finds new ways to remind you it exists. Not through pain. Not through regret. But through presence. Through proximity. Through the fact that the man who once shattered your world still carries your name and his story, whether you want him to or not. And Vanessa Trump? She wasn't the villain. She wasn't a threat. She was just another woman navigating the wreckage of public life, trying to find something real in a world that trades in spectacle. But here's where it gets brutal. Because Elin's reaction wasn't just about Tiger or Vanessa. It was about the cost of being a woman in the aftermath. The cost of rebuilding while the world watches. The cost of knowing that your pain, your resilience, your quiet victories will always be reduced to a headline whenever the man who hurt you makes a move. Tiger Woods didn't need Elin's permission to move on. But the world never stopped asking her how she felt about it. And that's the part that cuts. Not the moving on. But the perpetual role of witness. The woman who has to watch. The woman who has to react. The woman who has to prove she's okay, again and again, because the narrative demands it. So what did Elin do? She didn't respond. She didn't issue a statement. She didn't unfollow, subtweet, or leak to the press. She did what she'd been doing for over a decade. She lived her life. She posted photos with her kids. She shared updates about her mental health work. She stayed present in the life she'd built, the one that had nothing to do with Tiger Woods or the circus that still followed his name. And that, in itself, was the most brutal reaction she could have given. Because silence, when it's intentional, is louder than any outburst. It says, I don't need to fight this. I don't need to claim space in this narrative. I've already won. But here's the part no one talks about. The part that doesn't make headlines. The part that lives in the space between the photos and the silence. Elin is human. And humans feel things, even when they've healed. Even when they've moved on. Even when they've built something beautiful from the wreckage. She might have felt a flicker of something. Not jealousy. Not longing. But maybe frustration. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe the quiet ache of knowing that your trauma is public property, and there's nothing you can do to change that. Or maybe she felt nothing at all. Maybe the years had done their work. Maybe Tiger Woods was just a name now, a chapter that ended long ago, and what he did or didn't do no longer registered as relevant. We don't know. And that's the point. Because Elin doesn't owe us her pain. She doesn't owe us her peace. She doesn't owe us anything. If you've ever had to rebuild quietly while the world demanded a performance, you get it. And if you're feeling that, maybe tap that like. Not for me. For you. For the quiet resilience that doesn't get enough credit. Let's zoom out. Because this story isn't really about Elin and Tiger. It's not even about Vanessa Trump. It's about the machinery of public spectacle. The way we consume pain. The way we demand reactions. The way we treat healing like it's a performance we're entitled to witness. Elin Nordegren became a symbol in 2009. The wronged wife. The victim. The woman scorned. And for years, the world demanded she stay in that role. They wanted her to be angry. They wanted her to be broken. They wanted her to remind them, over and over, that Tiger Woods had hurt her. But she refused. She walked away from the role. She refused to be the tabloid character. She built something real. Something quiet. Something that didn't need validation from strangers. And still, the world keeps pulling her back. Every time Tiger makes a move, every time he's linked to someone new, the cameras turn to Elin. They ask, how does she feel? What does she think? Is she okay? It's exhausting. And it's unfair. And it's the reality of being a woman in the aftermath of a public betrayal. Because men like Tiger Woods get to move on. They get to rebuild their careers, their reputations, their lives. And the world cheers for the comeback. The redemption arc. The return to greatness. But women like Elin? They don't get redemption arcs. They get survival stories. They get asked, again and again, to prove they're okay. To prove they've healed. To prove they've moved on. And the truth is, Elin doesn't need to prove anything. She's already done the work. She's already rebuilt. She's already won. But the world doesn't let her forget. And that's the brutal part. Do you think the world holds women to a different standard when it comes to public heartbreak? Is the expectation fair, or is it time we let people heal without performing for us? I'd love to hear your thoughts below. So here's where we land. Elin Nordegren saw the photos. She saw Tiger Woods with Vanessa Trump. And in that moment, whatever she felt, she kept it to herself. Because she's earned that right. The brutal reaction wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't a public statement. It wasn't even silence as protest. It was the quiet, undeniable truth that she's built a life that doesn't revolve around him. And no headline, no photo, no rumor can take that away. Tiger Woods will always be part of her story. He's the father of her children. He's a name that will follow her, whether she wants it to or not. But he's not the story anymore. She is. And that's the real victory. Not in the settlement. Not in the revenge. Not in the public vindication. But in the life she's built when no one was watching. In the woman she became when the cameras finally turned away. Vanessa Trump? She's just another woman trying to find her footing in a world that loves to watch women fall. And if she and Tiger found something real, something meaningful, then good for them. Elin doesn't need to comment. She doesn't need to compete. She's already free. But freedom doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean the past stops echoing. It just means you've learned to live with the echo without letting it define the sound of your life. And Elin Nordegren has mastered that. She's a mother. A counselor. A partner. A survivor. A woman who chose to rebuild instead of retaliate. And that's the most brutal, beautiful reaction she could have ever given. If you're here because you value stories about resilience over spectacle, about healing over headlines, then maybe this channel is for you. Not because of the drama, but because of the truth underneath it. Subscribe if that resonates. Stay if it matters. Elin Nordegren didn't give the world what it wanted. She gave it what she had. And sometimes, that's the most powerful thing you can do.